Shalom Aleichem Rabotai, continuing in the Mishnah Yomi, in the second parak of Kilayim, on Mishnah Zion, the seventh Mishnah. Now, yesterday we talked about making a space between rows if you wanted to plant different species in each row. Now we're going to talk about other arrangements that would allow different species to be near each other and perhaps almost touching, but because of the shape, we're going to see that they're not supposed to be, they're not considered joined up. He had an ox head shape, so this is sort of a diamond or triangular shape, depending which mefarshim you listen to, but it's not a square. And it's of wheat, and it's nichnas, it's entering, it's like right next to, right adjacent, betoch shel sa'orin, to a barley. So you have a square of barley and a triangle or diamond shape of wheat, so that the corner of this triangle of wheat is almost poking the barley. So that is allowed. It appears that the edge of the barley, the edge of that rectangular square, is the end of your field. So it looks like that triangle of wheat is somebody else's plot. Somebody else happened to have a plot in a different shape. It was this diamond or a triangle shape, the rosh tor. So it looks like a different plot. It looks like a different owner entirely. So if you're growing a regular shape, a rectangle of wheat, and your adjacent friend, your neighbor, somebody else, is growing a different species, say he's growing barley, for instance, you can actually put next to his field the same species he's growing. Because remember, they had a mehitzot, they had a border in between each field. We're going to talk about this in Bava Basra in the Gemara, how big it is. It's a little strip that was left empty. Sometimes there was a little mound there or irrigation ditch, something to separate your field. So actually in that space, you could plant barley because it looks like a continuation of his field. To whoever's looking at it from the outside, they say, oh, it's somebody else's field. It's the neighbor's field. That's not really his. It doesn't really look like Kilayim to a passerby. Shelo chitim, shel chavero chitim. If you have wheat and your neighbor has wheat, and now we're talking about the little boundary land, the little mehitzot in between. Mutter l'smochlo telem shel pishtan. There you could plant one row. A telem is one row of pishtan, of flax. You recall that flax, we needed a lot of seeds to plant a beit seah of flax. We needed 3 seah of seeds. So one telem, one row, doesn't take up very much room, and it's noticeable that it's not being put there for permanent use. It's put there as a test. The Mepharshim say to test the soil. So you're planting one little row, which doesn't really yield much flax. Again, flax needs a lot of seeds to yield a proper crop. It's sort of a test for the soil. V'lo telem minacher, and the Mishnah continues, not a different thing, because a different thing, if you're planting one row, that's still usable. But one row of flax, you can't really do much. You're not going to get much pishtin, much bad with this. So it's really, everyone knows you're just testing the soil, and you're not going to be mekayim it, you're not going to let it keep going, and also it could be it's damaging to the wheat, and other species are not. So by flax, yes, by others, no. Mishman omer af zera pishtin, echad zera pishtan, ve'echad kol minim. He says whether it's one row of pishtin or one row of all the minim, because Rabbi Shimon holds people might plant just a little bit of flax. Maybe they want to put flax tzitzit in their woolen garments so they could do kilayim back then when they had techelis, that the wool and the pishtan were kilayim. Maybe they wanted just a little bit of flax, but typically people don't. The Chachamim say they don't. Rabbi Yossi Omer af be'emsa sadehu. He says even in the middle of your field, mutter livdog b'telem shel pishtan. He says even in the middle of your own field, not just on the boundary between that space usually left empty between your field and the neighbors, but even in the middle of your field, you could plant one row of pishtan because everybody knows that's not enough pishtan to do anything with, so it's really just a test of the soil, so you're not going to be mekayim it, so it does not look like kilayim. Good. Mishnah ches. Ein somchin listei tvua chardel v'charia. You do not plant right next to your field of grain a mustard plant or a saffron plant. So here too, you're trying to test the soil and see if it's good enough to grow a larger amount of mustard or saffron. But because sometimes people want just a little bit of mustard, a little bit of saffron. These are spices. They're spicy. They're very pungent spices. So it's not like pishtan where no one's going to plant one or a pishtan. You can't really do anything with it. but some people might plant one itty bitty of, that's a technical term, of mustard or saffron. But next to a field of vegetables, kind of like a vegetable garden, you could plant mustard or saffron just to test the soil, because everyone knows that these things suck up a lot of nutrients. They're harmful for the vegetables. So people are going to realize you're not going to let them grow to maturity, you're just going to test them. So here's another list continuing of places you can plant because there's some sort of boundary. Somech labur. You can plant a different species next to a boor. Now a boor is a strip of unplowed, untreated, unprepared land. It's sort of fallow, empty land. So a bore is a pit. So a bore is a pit that holds water. We're going to learn in Bava Kama, we don't put a bore in the public thoroughfare in the Shus Rabim because people fall in. Then some person would be whoever dug the bore would be chayav to pay for it. A bore is unplowed. Now, actually, we have this lashon in Pirkei Avos. In the second parak of Pirkei Avos, Hillel said, "Hu omer ein bur yirechet." A bore is unplowed, unprepared land. So somebody who's not plowed means, everyone has a hard outer layer, like the soil does. And if you don't break through that layer and allow the rain and the seeds and the sun and everything to come in, you never grow anything. So too, if your personality is very hard, and you don't let any other ideas and new concepts and new wisdom, new Torah in, you're never going to grow. So this bor, who can't be yirechet, it's somebody who's very hard, and he doesn't let any new concepts come in that might change the way he understands life. So he's not letting new Torah in. If he can't become yirechet, he's not going to let the musar in. So it's this bor, this unplowed land that we don't want to be like. So you could plant next to that because that forms a boundary. Villa Nir is a plowed land, but it's not planted, so it's empty. It's been plowed. It's better than a bore, but it's not planted. Lagofa is a stone wall that provides a boundary, so you could plant right up to the wall. On the other side, plant a different species. Laderech, a small road, a 4-amma road, not a Rishus Rabim, which is 16 amma. Lageder, Gavoa Asar Tefachim, a fence that's 10 tefachim high, so it's a halachic mehitzot. L'charitzu amuk asar rochav arba, a ditch, like an irrigation channel, that's 10 tefachim deep and it's 4 wide. That forms a legal separation. It's the own rishos for Shabbos as well. L'Ilan shehum meisich al haaretz, a tree that's got the branches low down that covers the ground. So it's kind of, that tree sort of makes like a fence. L'selagavo asar rochav arba, or a rock that's sort of a big boulder. It's 10 tefachim high and 4 tefachim wide. So all of these formations or conditions, they make a valid separation. So you can plant one species on one side of this barrier and the other species right on the other side of the barrier, and everyone knows it's not Kilayim even though they're close together. Shkoyach Rabotay, Shabbat Shalom.